Hello everyone, welcome back to The Broken Quill. I'm James A. Moores, and welcome to a 3-part series on narrative elements in Death Stranding. If you've never heard of it, Death Stranding is a narrative-driven video game by Japanese director Hideo Kojima. This series, which will be solely my opinion, and there is a specific reason for this, it's a Japanese game. Why do I say that? Well, it's because as a critical analyst, my training is in the English tradition. This means that the theories I prescribe to that we use for literary and critical analysis are based upon an understanding of the culture and thought of works written in the English language. Since Death Stranding is a Japanese game and therefore Japanese literature, in order to do a proper critical analysis, you would have to be a Japanese critic. Well, that doesn't mean we can't talk about it, and I definitely think we should talk about it. But it's just opinion. Will I get everything right? Definitely not. There's a lot of Japanese culture, I am sure, which is a part of this that is flying way over my head. If you have an opposing opinion, or you've noticed something I missed, then I'd love to hear it in the comments. So let's get started, and spoilers for Death Stranding. You don't have to have played the game to understand most of this talk, but it will definitely help. This is a divisive game. Not just because of gameplay, but because of narrative. Few people have even finished the game. Few people really want to look that deeply into a game with a few gamification elements and strange dialogue. The gameplay can be difficult or boring for some. There are people that feel that the game breaking the fourth wall, which it does, is bad. Product placement, overt acknowledgement that it's a game. At one point, Sam says he's Mario, that Amelie is Princess Peach. It's unstated, but Amelie isn't really there. Mario, your princess, is in another castle. I'm not going to be addressing a lot of these things. We'll be talking more about the gameplay in another part in this series. Today, we're going to be focusing on imagery, specifically blood, tar, and water. The first thing to say about this is that these are inversions of things which give life, used to take away life. That's probably hard to think about, especially for tar, but don't worry, we'll get there. So this is something called an inversion of expectation. We all know that blood gives life to a person, water sustains life, and tar gives life to society. That may have been a little surprising to hear. So let's talk about tar first, and it's specifically tar, even though in the game it's basically oil. This one is also the least of the subversions because we're already half there. Oil is destroying the environment. We fight wars over who can and cannot possess it, and it smells really bad. It gets into everything. Tar is sticky, it clings, it's messy, it's gooey, and when it's warm, it burns, even when part of asphalt. Especially when part of asphalt. And that's where we're going with this. Tar is a petroleum product. It doesn't have to be, but in our modern society, it mostly is. So the two are connected. But for a moment, let's ignore the oil part and focus simply and directly upon tar. We see tar as something bad as well. Most people understand tar as part of cigarettes, something that kills people. We definitely have a connotation of tar with bad things. Everyone knows about tar pits, those crude, bubbling seas of goo that struck down dinosaurs, never to be seen again. So you may be even more confused about why I would say that tar is the lifeblood of society, or more specifically, cities. Well, that's because of mineral tar, better known as asphalt, the primary ingredient in modern road surfaces. So the very thing that keeps our cars moving and keeps us going from place to place, moving food, moving product, moving everything that makes our society tick, goes through tar. Cars powered by petroleum on roads of tar, like veins. So the oil is the blood of the city. It brings life and allows us to form the bonds that we do by going out and doing things. Roads are important. The game points this out. A lot of the world is rugged, rivers, menacing stones, and unreliable paths that weave in and out of rock-strewn mountains. But build a road? Cruise across in luxury. Even if you don't have a car, walking the road is easier both in real life and in the game. So how are we using tar in the game? Well, there's some basic uses like dinosaurs frozen in tar pits and discoveries of that nature, but I mean in direct imagery. First, we have it as a signal of the enemy. The BTs, or beached things, are flowing with tar. It is basically their blood. When they discover you, walking with their hands, leaving small pits of tar that splash in their wake, if they catch you, the land turns to black oil and tar. Figures made of viscous black materials reach up and grab you, and if they succeed in pulling you down, an ocean of tar and oil flows up, and you are required to fight a tar squid or tentacle monster, lions and whales. That's a basic image. It's not a big leap to make, and it just reasserts the viewer's mind the connection between tar and bad. But one of the best images with tar is a subtle one. One which I'm not sure people really have noticed. Bridget Strand is President of the United Cities of America, which at this point is only one city, but she is still a stand-in for government, a stand-in for society. When our main character, Sam Porter Bridges, is summoned to her bedside, she lunges at him, pulling herself towards him, dragging the wires with her, and she bleeds. What does she bleed? Tar. Yes, she's being presented here as a BT. She has umbilical cables that reach up into the sky, and she crawls along the ground to chase us. She leaves oil in her wake. So she's leaving all the signs of being a manifestation of BTs. But it's not a singular message, and these connecting images are what is so powerful about both this scene and what Kojima is putting in here. The lifeblood of society comes from its leader. And what is that lifeblood? Tar. Tar is dangerous. It hurts. It's painful. It sticks to you long after battle is over. It's a sign you've been fighting. You're stained by it. The only way to get rid of it is by washing it off. Which brings us to our next element. Water. Water is a neutral thing. I say this because people have this dual view of water. While tar, we all agree is evil from the start, water, we're divided on. Do you love the sea? Or do you, as Kojima apparently does, fear the sea? What about rain? Do you love the rain, hate the rain, find it an inconvenience? What about a glass of water? You cannot deny it, water is required for life. It gives life. No water, no life. On a basic understanding of life on this planet, we could not exist were we not in the Goldilocks zone. The Goldilocks zone is a distribution of a planet from its sun, where water can exist in a liquid form. Without water, our carbon-based life cannot exist. We cannot exist if it weren't for water. So water is a basic building block of life on this Earth. In Death Stranding, water is directly inverted. The point of this is the same with tar. Subversion of expectation. It's not just turning rain into an oppressive, dangerous thing. It is, but it's not just that. Water gives life, but here, it gives death. Death to everything. Death to life, the land, packages, cars. It's a universal constant. While water can certainly damage cars and the landscape, we, as often, see a raging storm as a gentle spring rain. A raging sea and a calm, gentle lake, a powerful rapid and a babbling brook. In Death Stranding, while the duality is somewhat preserved, you have a canteen which filters water and shower that cleanses you. The natural water of the world, untouched by human hands, is dangerous. How exactly is it dangerous? It's called timefall. Timefall clings to water. It has become part of the water, and it ages everything it touches. What once gave life now takes it away. Water keeps us healthy. It's something we need to live, yet here it takes life and sustains the dead. As you move through the world of Death Stranding, you'll encounter the rain. Before you encounter the BTs, you'll encounter the rain. It will start as a prelude, gentle, light, and then grow heavier. Your suit will beep, the game will slow, and your hood will automatically spring up to cover you. Your heavy spacesuit that you walk in will do its best to keep you shielded from the water. All while this is happening, your precious cargo will start to degrade. It will show rust damage, its caution tape will turn from yellow to orange and then to red. The boxes aren't being damaged by the rain. They are aging. They've been on your back for years, decades, then centuries, maybe even 1,000 years, depending on how long they've been on your back. The same is true about your vehicles. They are battery operated, and when you drive them into water, the battery drains faster. Maybe because it's having to work harder, but in the context of the time fall, it's because when you submerge the vehicle and the time fall gets in every nook and cranny, it's been operating for 100 years in the space of just a few seconds, so the battery is drained. It's not a perfect interpretation, I admit. The battery doesn't seem to degrade in normal rain, but I like that view better. Just saying it's working harder denies that water ages things, so for my purpose, I'm going to interpret it as being connected to that specific quality. Vehicles age from the time fall as well. From the water, they grow rust spots, which cover the cars and trikes of the game. After only a few heavy showers, on a long trip across America, you might start with a pristine van, but by the time your journey is over, even on a road, it's covered in rust. It's barely functional, even if you've charged it with local generators and roads. A journey for you was only a few minutes, but for the car, it was centuries. This has a few simple metaphors which we can see as imagery. We're basically rehashing an old expression. I prefer time's arrow, but a lot of people prefer time stream or the river of time. The idea that time is water is common in at least the English tradition. I'm not sure about the Japanese, and that's going back to what I said earlier. But there definitely seems to be a link between viewing time as water, as something which flows and moves, and literal time water in Death Stranding. One of the most profound examples of this is in what appears to be a mistake. At first, character Mama, a character we are introduced to as a brilliant scientist of the chiral network, is so called because she has a baby. We discover, however, that her baby is dead, a BT still connected to her by a spectral umbilical cord. She tells us she was pregnant, and then an explosion destroyed her city and turned the hospital she was in to rubble. She was crushed under it, and looked up through the time fall and saw her baby floating above her and crying. Her baby had died, but she was fortunate, and despite being trapped, she had water to drink. The time fall falls into her face, and she drinks it. At first we watch this, and we think, oh, time fall bad. How is it not hurting her? It must be a mistake, a plot hole. But it's not. When Mama can't take it anymore, she has us cut the umbilical cord and free her child. It floats to the ceiling where a figure pushes down, cradles the baby into its arm, and disappears with it back into the ceiling. Mama then dies. We are told she died in the rubble with her baby, her ka, or spirit, moving on, but her ha, or body, staying here in our world. This means that the water that gave her substance was not affecting her because the timefall does not affect the dead. The timefall affects inanimate objects, cars, and boxes, so why shouldn't it affect the dead? In this world, the dead don't decompose, they explode in something called a void out, unless they still have some kind of consciousness, though another character named Deadman, who is a Frankenstein's monster built from pieces of the dead, probably would be unaffected by the rain. But I can understand not wanting to fully give away the goat there. I still would have preferred them to do that, make it more concrete. As it is, we only have the one example, and it's going to be a powerful part of what makes this work. It would have been nice to drive it in completely. Water is clearly set as something bad. The few times we see it as a positive are outmatched by the sheer oppressiveness of it. Water destroys, and it nourishes the dead. Whenever there is a BT, specters of the dead, which have left the afterlife to come and drag the living down with them, they are sustained and kept alive by the timefall rains. Water nourishes the dead and kills the living. The only thing we have to counter this subversion, the only tool we have against them, is blood. The blood of the covenant is stronger than the water of the womb, and Bridges hereby enters into a contract with Sam Porter Bridges. This is getting dangerously close to actual critical analysis, but bear with me a moment. This is where things get interesting. When people say blood is thicker than water, they mean familiar ties are stronger than our friends. What the actual quote means is that the bonds we make in conflict are stronger than the bonds formed by family. Those we fight for life with links are stronger than simple biology. This, I feel, is a theme we see throughout Death Stranding. We can hardly get away from pregnancy imagery, and its links form across death. Umbilical cords are ubiquitous in the game. We carry with us a bridge baby, an entity which in and of itself is a subversion. Babies who are born dead are called stillbirths. In other words, the baby is still, not moving. But in this world, it is the mother who is still. A mother that dies in childbirth while the baby lives is called a still mother. The baby straddles the world of the living and the world of the dead, allowing it to see BTs. It's placed on a mechanical womb, and the male characters carry it over their stomachs as if they were pregnant. They can attach an umbilical cord that allows them to share the baby's vision, making them one entity. So other than the idea of men stealing pregnancy from women, and only able to conceive something dead rather than something living, we are definitely making connections that speak to this quotation. Other images of this include the fact that the BTs have umbilical cords reaching down to the earth, and by cutting them, giving them birth, are they then able to return to the world of the dead. This gives us a currency of the game, suggesting that BTs are thankful to be born back into the world of the dead. But James, what does this have to do with blood? Well, if blood is stronger than water, if the BTs, as we saw before, are creatures of the new water, then how do we defeat them? Why, with blood, of course. If, by the quotation, water of the womb connects to death, then the thickness of the blood refers to battle. And this is correct. In the quotation, we are considering the concept of bonds formed by spilling blood, sacrifice. The concept we normally associate with blood is that it gives us life. It is a strong and powerful image of something alive, the beating of a heart, the pulsing of veins. Without blood, we cannot live. When we give blood, we are described as giving life and saving life. This concept of giving life is shown by the fact that we can carry around blood bags of our own blood, that when we are injured, automatically inject into our body, restoring our life. This is a standard use of the imagery of death. And I said there was a subversion here, so what is it? Blood is the only way to kill the dead. I know that's an odd thing to say, and on the surface we see how that's just a continuation of the earlier image of blood as a life-giving substance. What is more akin to antagonist to death than life? Well, that is correct. The delivery is what's important. When Sam is injured, early in the game, he spills blood. His leg is hurt and he's dripping blood into the water around him. The BTs turn away from the blood. They are near Sam. Shouldn't they go for him? But he's bleeding, and there are more satisfying targets, so they turn away. When Deadman figures out that the blood can be used as a weapon, we go through a progression of weaponry, each one more and more deadly. First, we are given a grenade, which this may seem like a powerful weapon, but what it amounts to is basically just splashing our blood on the enemy, and yes, it's our blood. Keep some blood bags on you and they'll get used up first, but without them, it'll take your own health. So your life is drained. It's taken. By killing the BTs, you're pulled closer and closer to becoming them. There's a message there about violence destroying yourself, that if you take a life, you lose a part of your own life, but I digress. So you first get a splash grenade, basically a water balloon filled with your own blood. Then we move up, more and more. Next we get a bolo gun, simple. It's effective, but it doesn't kill the BTs, it just restricts them until they can break free of it. Then a pistol, small, effective. than an assault rifle, or if you will, a machine gun, rapid fire. You can take down a BT at range, never even bothering to get close if you don't want to. Then a grenade launcher, where you can clear an area of BTs in a blink. Then, finally, a quad rocket launcher. You can take down the largest of enemies with this puppy. Nothing stops you. You can empty your entire soul into one of these and dump rocket after rocket at long range. Blood isn't life anymore, it's cold. It's a tool. It devastates the enemy. We can no longer see it as something which gives and sustains life. It is now something that destroys the other. We could say defeating your enemy is still life-sustaining, but I hardly think we can honestly suggest that murder is a life-giving act. So blood, tar, and water. Givers of life, sustainers, subverted. Now the bringers of fear, destruction, and violence. Subversion can be a powerful tool in the writer's arsenal, forcing us to look at something in a new way or to consider basic truths we may hold. Death Stranding is by no means a perfect game. It is also by no means a perfect story, but the way these elements are used and presented to us are fascinating. I hope you enjoyed this first episode in the series. Next time, we'll be looking at grass, mud, and snow using environmental storytelling. And remember, comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell. You're always welcome here at the Broken Quill. Thank you most kindly.